Positive psychology and areas linked to positive psychology include such things as optimism or hope, resilience, and also flow. So today I'll be focusing on two of these areas, resilience and flow, and how we can use these concepts and these ideas with our mentees and in mentoring relationships in general to help people get the best out of a mentoring situation, really. So positive psychology focuses on the strengths of people. It's trying to improve people's lives, focusing on those positive aspects and making people more productive, making working life more fulfilling, and trying to identify and nurture highest talents. So rather than traditional psychology, which is often focused on ill health and on problems and what's not working at the moment, positive psychology tries to flip that and focus on what is working well, what we can build on, and what we can broaden in individuals, really. So something that's linked very strongly with positive psychology is this issue of change, and this is really useful when you're obviously working with mentees in terms of how can we manage the process of change more positively. Change is something that people come to at various points in their life, and it's often something that instigates a mentoring relationship. You know, often the reason people embark on a mentoring relationship is because they want to change something, although they might not be clear on what they want to change and whether they're ready to change. It might just be a vague feeling that something needs to change. If we look at this picture, you can see there's this common perception, and it's very apt for mentoring relationships, and you may well meet mentees whose glass is half full in terms of they're always looking at the positive side of their business or of their career or of their life situation, and you'll meet mentees who the glass is half empty, so they'll be wanting to focus on what's wrong with their business or what's wrong with their career or work or their life situation at the moment. And as a mentor, it's a challenge to try and flip people around from focusing on what's not working to what is working and how you can help them build on that and strengthen the resources they've got inside them, really. If we look at this flow chart, it simplifies things really right down to back to basics. You can imagine yourself working through this with a mentee in your first session. In all of the sessions, really, it comes back to this often, this central question of are you happy with what you're doing at the moment with work and where you're at the moment. So although hopefully you wouldn't be dealing with the questions with your mentee in such a direct way as this flowchart implies, really. So if you look at the top, it's just asking, are you happy in your working role, life or business? And if you can answer yes, then the next simple step to follow down the flowchart is basically to keep doing whatever you're doing then. If you answer no, then the next question is, well, do you want to be happy? And it's not quite as it might sound. Sometimes you might need to ask others if they're ready to be happy, because bringing about change can bring with it many changes. So it brings about many challenges as well when you're dealing with change on a mentoring basis with people, and you have to be ready to help them through those processes. So when we're talking about happiness related to work and how to help people make changes and move forward in their work or in their career or business, it's really both as easy and as hard as that. I mean, Anthony Robbins, the great motivational speaker, has said time and time again, if you do what you've always done, then you'll get what you've always got. And there is a pattern with many mentees where you see patterns repeating of behaviour. You might get an entrepreneur who keeps trying to get sales or market their products in the same way, and they just don't understand why it's not working, but they just keep trying the same way rather than reviewing the situation and completely thinking again and starting from scratch and making some major changes. And obviously that's your role as a mentor, is to try and help them think out of that usual pattern of thinking really, and try and do something different. So when you're looking at change, we're looking with mentees and we're asking them in terms of positive psychology, you know, what can I change about myself and what can I change about the situation? Usually it's harder to change the situation, but you can try and change yourself, although, you know, that's not easy, of course, but that's going to be a lot easier than changing the situation that you're facing. You can try and change your reactions or your responses to events, so that even if you can't change or control the event, you can change how you're reacting to something that's happening. And this idea of changing and having more control over events, and individual control for mentees, links to the positive psychology idea of resilience, and that's what I'm going to talk through now really. So supporting your mentees to develop resilience is going to be a useful tool and something to help them develop on both a personal and professional level really. So what is resilience? For those of you who haven't heard about this term, it's becoming more common to talk about resilience, especially for looking for jobs, for unemployment, returning to work, people who are facing difficulties, but just for people who work for someone as well as working for yourself really. So the idea of resilience is it's your ability to deal with difficult situations and uncertain situations. It's about bouncing back, getting back on the horse is the phrase that people might use. And it's about your ability to be determined to see something through to its end, even in the face of difficult pressures, to do something else or to give it up. And that's a very common concept that you'll find with entrepreneurs, that they have to be very resilient because there might be many people telling them to just give it up or don't try it, it's just too difficult. There might be difficult circumstances, the economic crisis, the recession in different countries. So there's a lot of need at the moment for developing this idea of personal resilience as well as business resilience. So resilience is a psychological feature, and it contributes towards preventing damaging effects of psychological distress, we would say, so that resilient people are able to cope better with difficult and adverse events than people who don't have much resilience really. So resilience is an example of something you would be wanting to help your mentees to develop, and you can, what I'm going to go through next is 4 different patterns of career resilience that are specifically applied to entrepreneurs or to people in business that you could look at with your mentees. And also I'm going to look at the 8 areas of resilience that are useful at work in general that you might find useful to work through with your mentees as well. So career resilience is not just for people who work for someone else. They're patterns that support people who are successfully self-employed as well. So it's not a one-off event, the idea of resilience. It's a daily, hour by hour pattern of behaviour that you need to help and encourage your mentees to develop really. So there's these 4 patterns of career resilience that have been identified for business people, and you can see them on the screen. They're those patterns that support clarifying, patterns that support connecting, patterns that support creating, and finally patterns that support coping. So I'll just go through these in turn to explain to you. So if we're starting with clarifying, it's something that when you work for yourself, you just need to be constantly working on really. You're always looking at what's going on with customers and the sector that you're working on, how your strengths meet those trends, what are your most important priorities, how do you want your business to reflect your values and the values of your customers really. So you need to be clear about purpose, assets and goals, and they're all really critical to having a healthy and successful business for entrepreneurs. So many small business owners, they need to have more intentional behaviours about finding these patterns to find clarity in their working life. Because you will find with many of your mentees who run their own businesses that it's easy for them to be caught up in day-to-day administration business tasks, that they forget to have that step back and get clear about what they're doing and why they're doing it. And that's where reflective practice becomes really important. And this is important as your role as mentors, to help your mentee become more reflective, to take that time out and to think about what they're doing, why they're doing it. So for those of you who are involved in the mentoring project and have already received the face-to-face training in Greece or in Bulgaria, hopefully through your action learning groups you'll get the chance to develop the ability to support your mentees develop more reflective thinking as well. So clarity can also be found in terms of making the right kind of connections or network, as well as thinking about ideas, and that's the next step we'll move on to. So in terms of making a connecting pattern for resilience, this is really crucial again for business owners. It's how people find customers, make networks and connect to others to sell, innovate, make connections really. And this is something that most small businesses and entrepreneurs do without thinking. It's really just like breathing for them. But what may happen less often, but is equally important for their success, is using that ability to connect to others and other people and other networks to support other aspects of their work. So especially if you're working with somebody who's a solo entrepreneur who works just on their own, it's about encouraging them and supporting them to make connections that reinforce personal and professional growth, as well as that feeding into the need for social contact. If you're working in isolation, it can be quite lonely for many entrepreneurs. So it's about encouraging them to find mentors, communities of practice, which might be like other action learning groups or other groups who can challenge their thinking and hold them accountable for achieving their goals. So that's where your role as a mentor supporting entrepreneurs really becomes crucial. So in terms of making connections, it's about seeking out people, finding out new information, new ideas and new possibilities, but also about clarifying this so that we can help people create more resilience. So the final pattern is this creating pattern. So most successful business people, small business people, are pretty good at creating already. They're good at coming up with new ideas and innovating, because, you know, after all, without creating, the business really has nothing to sell. But creation is more than just daily doing an activity. It's also about taking risks and having a go, experimenting with what the business is doing at the moment. So you need to be encouraging people to stretch themselves in this creative process to bring some truly innovative ideas into their business, and encourage them to look at how they're dealing with and learning from failure in order to get the best out of their new ideas. So the idea of creating is about making sure that they put into place the right structures and supports for getting their work done, so that it can be hopefully structured about being more inspirational and about values and missions and purpose, rather than just about daily to-do list. So something that's going to be crucial if you're a mentor to other people is about helping them, supporting mentees in terms of developing coping patterns. So especially when you're working with small business people, or when you're working with somebody who wants to focus on more personal aspects of their life, developing patterns for coping is probably the area where a lot of business people especially have the most difficulties, because there is a cult within entrepreneurship that drives many people to believe that when you work for yourself, you've got to be working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it means that you're putting in terms of the emotional and physical and spiritual needs of yourself at very low priority. Now, this is particularly true when the businesses are new, or if we fail to put into the place the right structures for creating or clarifying. But by creating healthy coping patterns, this is really critical if you want to help people run their businesses for the long term. So as a mentor, you want to be making sure that you're trying to nurture and sustain non-work parts of people to encourage them to keep up those non-business aspects that will help them prevent burnout, really. And in particular, healthy coping mechanisms need to look at emotional aspects of people's lives as well. So you need to be encouraging your mentees to look at their emotions, to understand their emotions, because the emotions that we feel are a strong indicator of what is and what isn't working. But people need to pay attention to them in order to address what they're telling us. So resilience is something we all need to develop, really, but for entrepreneurs it's probably one of the most important aspects to develop, and something that you can have a strong role in developing as a mentor. So I'll now just go through some of the 8 dimensions of resilience that you can look at developing with your mentee, and at the end I'll show you a questionnaire that you could use if you were interested with your mentees to help them look at these different areas and where their strengths are at the moment. So in terms of building resilience, the first aspect that seemed to be important is this one of self-efficacy. And this involves having a high level of self-confidence and self-belief that you can meet any challenge. So self-efficacy includes understanding that whilst the world is difficult, you have the ability to succeed despite these challenges. If you've heard of the M. Scott Peck quote at the beginning of his book, it starts by saying, "Life is difficult. This is the great truth, one of the greatest truths. It's a great truth because once we see this truth, we transcend it." And basically it's saying to your mentees, really, accept this concept. Life is difficult. There will be challenges. There will be difficulties and problems. Once we can accept that, we can try and work through it and move over it and have success despite of these difficulties and challenges. So the second aspect is having this personal vision. Resilient people, they know what they believe in and they have a clear idea of what they want to accomplish or create in their life. With a personal vision, even if it's very blurred, for a business or for a personal perspective, people can use this as a guide pretty much through life's challenges, and it can provide them with hope for the future. Now, hope is something crucial in a mentoring relationship, to develop hope in your mentee. You may be faced with a mentee who comes and just feels there is no hope for their business or for their working situation at the moment, and hope is just crucially linked to people's motivation and their ability to strive towards goals, which is really essential for being successful in business or work. You know, research shows that hopeful individuals enjoy lots of benefits that are not experienced by low hope colleagues, and these include higher academic grades, performance, better psychological well-being, and greater physical health as well. So it's a really important concept that you can be trying to bring back into your mentees' day-to-day life if it's something that they're struggling with, having that feeling of a lack of hope for the future for themselves or their business. The third aspect is being flexible and adaptable. So being adaptable and flexible enables people to respond to unknown challenges often, and they seek out ways of getting over events, of overcoming challenges, and being able to adapt to a new reality. This is really essential for business success, and it reduces the impact of rigidity when you're faced with a constantly changing environment, which we all are in business, and especially for small businesses. The environment is constantly changing and they need to be able to be flexible to adapt to this. So, I mean, to be flexible and adaptable constantly tops the charts in terms of the types of qualities that employers are most looking for in staff. It's a competency, it's a skill in a way that you can't easily address on an interview panel, and it's something as a business person that people really have to ask themselves if they are flexible and adaptable enough to be able to get through running a business in difficult times. The fourth aspect is to be organised. So creating some sort of structured approach, even if it's not completely rigidly structured, to tasks that need to get done in the business or in work. They really add to somebody's individual ability to maintain personal control in the face of seemingly chaotic existence, really, or uncontrollable external events. So again, going back to a very famous poem by Rudyard Kipling, which is called If, which you may know, really expresses this ability perfectly when it says, if you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you. And it's really about developing that ability with people and supporting them through this process to keep their head when it's all going crazy and it's all going chaotic around them. And if you can help them develop that sense of calmness and organisation through that chaos, then that's a really key area for many people to be successful in work or business. The fifth aspect is that of problem solving. So the ability to resolve problems enables people to find causes and solutions to adverse events that really impinge on daily life. So those who train themselves to enjoy problem solving effectively can enjoy challenges that difficult circumstances bring along. And this is really a day-to-day event in any small business or any large business for that matter. So if you can help your mentee learn to enjoy solving problems and to look at problems as an opportunity for coming up with some novel solutions and for enjoying the process, if you can help your mentee to go back to their childhood where they used to learn how to solve problems and enjoy that problem solving aspect where you're trying to sort shapes in boxes or do jigsaws as a toddler, then this is how you can help them to develop that enjoyment of the process rather than them just getting instantly frustrated whenever a problem comes along. And if you're more likely to be able to do this way, then you can help yourself to develop strengths and strategies for future challenges. So once you face problems and successfully solve them, you're more likely to feel confident that you can do it again the next time you're faced with a difficulty, really. The sixth aspect of resilience is called interpersonal interaction, and this is a key dimension really that's looking at someone's ability to understand and empathise with others. So it does link with the idea of emotional intelligence, which is seen as really important as well in running a business or in work in general. So resilient people tend to demonstrate high emotional intelligence, high levels of self-awareness and social awareness, and crucially they have the ability to use that to effectively manage themselves and manage relationships with others, and that might be customers or clients or staff really. So success is really strongly influenced by these qualities people have, such as perseverance and self-control and the skill in getting along with others. So as a mentor, your role is how you can encourage and develop somebody's interpersonal interaction skills, how you can encourage them to develop their emotional intelligence in order to be more successful in their day-to-day working life. The seventh aspect is developing social connections for resilience. So it's really about the quality, not just quantity of connections that people might have in work or in a business. So resilient people tend to have strong relationships with selected friends and colleagues who they share ideas, problems and solutions, as well as frustrations, difficulties. And you need to be encouraging your mentee to develop their network with the right people, because it's not all about just having a network of people that you can pretend that everything's okay with. It's about helping your mentee to develop that network of trusted people that they can share worries or concerns or frustrations with as well, in order to work through those aspects. And again, as a mentor, you might be crucial part of that social network, that social connection, and you might be one of these key people that the business person uses in order to offload any difficulties, really. So moving on to the final aspect of resilience, and then I'll take some questions after this section, is about being active. So it's about being actively engaged and involved in change. So resilient people are often actively involved in change. They see themselves as a real part of it rather than on the sidelines. And when difficult circumstances or challenges come along, resilient people will be assertive to sort of help to change the situation, as well as maintaining personal control and self-efficacy, self-belief in this. So people need to take an active role in change, even if they think it's unwelcome change. They don't want to change, really. If you have an active role, you're more likely to get through it in a more positive and healthy psychological way. You're more likely to be able to control and influence outcomes as well, really. So that's the 8 aspects of resilience, really, in a nutshell. And if you can be looking at these concepts when you're working with your mentors, with your mentees, this is going to be really useful for you to be helping them look at the different areas. What is flow? For those of you who haven't heard about this idea, it's a big thing in positive psychology. It's been around for many years, but it's only fairly recently been discussed in terms of work. In the past, it's been used as a way of understanding how people get into this state in hobbies or creative pastimes, really. So flow was developed, as you like, by this person called Csikszentmihalyi, and he was investigating artists and musicians that have these genuinely satisfying experiences called flow, where they are deeply enjoying what they're doing, totally involved, and they lose all connections with what's going on around them. So according to Csikszentmihalyi, flow is completely focused motivation, and that's why it's useful as a concept to learn about with your mentees and who in work-based situation, because it's strongly linked to motivation, which is crucial for small businesses. So it's a single-minded immersion, if you like, and it represents, the highest level of harnessing your emotions in terms of performing and also learning. It helps people to learn more effectively. So it's beneficial for lots of situations, really. So when you're in a state of flow, emotions are not just contained, but they're positive and they're energized by the task that somebody's doing at that time. So something that's a hallmark of flow, if you like, something that you know if you're in flow, is this feeling of spontaneous happiness or joy while you're performing a task. Although often flow is also described as a time when you're deeply focused on just the task. You're not focused on yourself or your emotions. So other terms for this similar mental states are saying that you're in the zone or you're on a roll. So lots of people who are experiencing this at work find that this is a way to genuinely increase their enjoyment of work, and it's also a way of ensuring that your work is bringing you a sense of well-being or a sense of enjoyment, and that's where the link is with positive psychology, really. So once again, as with any theory, there are different aspects that people believe that you need to develop in order to get into the zone of flow, if you like. And there are 9 aspects of flow that I'll just briefly go through with you. And you need to think about how you can help your mentees develop these 9 aspects, or as many as possible, so that they can get the most out of their work or the business that they're involved in. So 9 steps to finding flow. The first step is to make sure that you're choosing tasks or choosing work or choosing a business that you love, really. So without this key concept, it's going to be really impossible to get into this state of flow. If you dread a task or you dread going to work in the morning, then you'll have a hard time losing yourself in that task or losing yourself in that role. Now, of course, there are tasks that everyone dislikes doing in any job, and that will vary from person to person. And your mentee may well hate certain aspects of their business in terms of tasks or their job. Commonly, it's doing the accounts or doing the business accounts. But if your job or if your business is completely made up of stuff that people hate, then you really want to consider asking, is this the right job or business for you, and think about changing. So that's really getting to that core of whether your mentee is passionate about what they're doing. It's really key to understanding if they're in the right job for them or the right business, really. So you need to be sure that whatever task you choose to try and get into flow, it's something that you can be passionate about. And often tasks that people can get into flow easily with might be things such as writing, or reading, or presenting, or innovating or developing ideas or designing, things like this, really. But it's going to be different for every business and every person. The next step is to really choose something that's important. So there's work that we all love that's easy and it's unimportant, and then there's work we love and tasks we love that will make a long-term impact on both your personal and professional development and that of the organisation, really. So when you're thinking about flow, you need to be looking to choose the second one. So choose tasks that are going to make a long-term impact, that they are important. It's not just that they're easy. So you need to choose important tasks to make a better use of your time and to get into this state of flow more easily as well. Thirdly, it's to make sure something's challenging in terms of tasks or activities, but not too hard. It's always a difficult balance, isn't it? So if something's too easy, you'll be able to get through it, complete it without too much thought or effort. So in order to get into the flow zone, something has to be just difficult enough to need your full concentration. But then again, as with all things, if it's too hard, you'll find it difficult to lose yourself in it. And you'll spend most of your time trying to concentrate, trying to figure out how to do something. Either that, or you'll just end up really discouraged and demotivated. So it might take trial and error for people to find the balance of challenge with their skills, obviously. And as a mentor, one of your roles can be looking at how people can bring in more challenges to their business. And certainly some of the mentees we've worked with over the years get to a point in their business where they feel there are no challenges anymore, and they need to be supported in finding new challenges and bringing in ways to make tasks that they feel they are just completely comfortable with, and bring in an element of challenge in them in order to bring back that excitement and that ability to start getting into this flow zone, really. The fourth step is to find a quiet but peak time. So really it's 2 steps, if you like, into one this. So you want to find a time that's quiet, or people want to find a time that's quiet, otherwise they won't be able to focus on what they have to do. And in terms of days, that might be early morning or late at night. It's different for everybody. But whatever time people choose, it needs to be a time that is peak for them. So in terms of energy, they have peak energy time. So some people get tired after lunch. That might not be a good time for flow. So you need to find a time when you've got lots of energy and you can concentrate. So again, if you're faced with a mentee who is not having this quiet peak time, it's about encouraging them to find ways of finding this time to get into this state of flow, to really develop some creative ideas or to really get back the enjoyment of their business tasks. The fifth step is about clearing away distractions. So in addition to finding a quiet time and a quiet place maybe, you want to just clear away all other distractions. So that might mean turning off distracting music, unless you find music helps you focus, turning off phones or emails or notifications, anything else really that might pop up and disrupt you or interrupt your thoughts. And that's really difficult in our society, and especially for business people where they're expected to be switched on with all these different media aspects all day long really. But it's necessary in order to focus and really concentrate. And some people might find it also helpful to physically clear their environment, clear the desk. A clear desk helps many people to concentrate, as simple as that sounds really. So again, it's something to discuss with your mentee if they're struggling to get through work or they're struggling to get tasks completed, to make sure they're thinking about these basic aspects in order to help themselves have the right conditions really for getting into flow. The sixth step is to learn to focus. So you need to be helping people to learn how to focus on tasks for as long as possible really, and it's something that takes practice for people. You can start on a chosen task and keep focus on it for as long as possible. And if it's a bit like learning to meditate really, or develop mindfulness, which is another positive psychology arena. So you need to keep focus on that task with no distractions. And if your task has been chosen well, in that, as we looked at before, it's something that you love, it's something important, and it's something challenging, then you should find it a lot easier to lose yourself in flow, and you can help your mentees to remember this crucial need to focus on tasks and develop that concentration that many of us have lost this ability in this day and age of instant messaging and the need to multitask at all times. We're losing often that ability to focus on a task and go quite deeply into it to get the best out of it really. The seventh step is to really enjoy yourself. So if you can get into flow, if you can encourage your mentees to get into flow at work, it's an amazing thing, and it's great to be able to pour yourself into something worthwhile, to make great progress on a project or a task, and to be involved in something that you're really truly passionate about. So it's about taking the time to appreciate this feeling. For many people it might be after the fact. It's often hard to appreciate how much you're enjoying yourself while you're in this state of flow. So for many people it's only once they finish the experience that they realise, wow, that was great, I was so productive and I really enjoyed myself. So as a mentor, you're trying to encourage your mentees to reflect. Again, it's back to this idea of encouraging mentees to be more reflective about their experiences and asking them what they enjoyed about tasks and why they enjoyed it, and getting to the heart of what they enjoy about their business to really bring their mind to focus on that much more. Step 8, as with anything in life, if you want to get into flow and if you want to encourage mentees to get into flow more often, you need to encourage them to practice. So each step takes some practice, from finding the right time, the right peak time, to clearing away distractions, and also to choosing and finding the right task. And so, like I said, keeping focus is an area that really needs a lot of practice by many people. And each time somebody fails to get into the flow zone, they can try and learn from it, and each time they succeed, they should also learn and get better at it. So what helped them to get into that state? And the more they practice, the more people should be able to get back into that state, really. The rewards. And really, aside from the pleasure of getting into flow, in the beginning, you know, people will be happier with their work overall, be happier with the tasks that they've completed. In addition to that sort of emotional component of people being happier at work, they are also more productive in terms of getting more important things done. So you'll complete things more often rather than starting and stopping frequently or procrastinating, which is a big issue for many people at work. You'll help people build skills and knowledge in terms of being able to focus and concentrate, and all of these skills are really transferable to any kind of job or work or business situation. So all of that is hugely satisfying and rewarding, and if you can take the time to appreciate this yourself, as a mentor, try and understand how you get into your flow zone, how you develop that aspect of positive psychology in your own working practice, then you can help other people hopefully to develop that ability and to use it to have greater well-being at work and in their business, really. So just finally, in terms of talking again about practice and helping your mentees to understand the value of practice and the need for practice on these soft skills areas of business development, if you like, rather than the hard skills of practicing marketing or finance, financial planning, we're talking today about practicing soft skills and practicing this sort of psychological or the emotional side of running a business. There's an author who's also a musician and a neuroscientist called Daniel Levitin, and he's written a book about practice, if you like, and he says that an expert or someone who's a master of their craft is measured by the fact that that person has practiced their craft for 10,000 hours. So 10,000 hours of practice is required, they say, to achieve a level of mastery that's associated with being a world-class sort of expert in anything. And study after study of musicians or sports people, writers, comes up with that number again and again, really. So when you're looking at 10,000 hours, what does that equate to on a day-to-day basis? And it's equal to roughly 3 hours of practice a day or 20 hours a week of practice for 10 years. So, of course, some people will never be able to reach mastery of tasks if you can't dedicate that amount of time or hours of practice for something. It does take the brain a long time to, you know, assimilate and bring in everything it needs to know in order to achieve true mastery. But you might not feel that you've got that amount of time to practice this skill, and your mentees certainly might not feel that they have this amount of time either. But any number of hours can work towards mastering the art of flow more easily. So one final thought, really, before we have a final set of questions and answers that I can answer, is just to look at something that has strong links with positive psychology, that's the area of gratitude. So research has shown that people who are genuinely grateful can be more optimistic, they have greater health, and also can live longer. And in one recent study, people who focused on being grateful rather than on not being angry were found to have a positive impact on different physiological functions, lower heart rate, lower pulse rates. And that's really interesting because it's comparing reactions when you try and neutralize negative thoughts as opposed to when you focus on positive thoughts. So the research shows that there's this need to focus on positive thoughts rather than trying to just push away negative thoughts. So a practical tool you can use with mentees to bring this out is about reflecting on 3 good things. So if you encourage your mentees to take a couple of minutes at the end of each day to reflect on their day at work or in their personal life, it might be identifying 3 things that happened during the day for which they're really grateful. They need to write these things down in a journal because research also shows it's important to write things down, that the act of writing things down helps your brain make a mental note, really, and it's much more of a strong way of laying down these pathways. And also to review why each circumstance was good, really. And this daily exercise of counting your blessings or being grateful has been found to really increase happiness and sustain happiness. And for people when they're running their business and they can feel like all they're coming up against is challenges and difficulties, it's going to be really useful for you and a really easy exercise to work through with your mentees to help them bring back this idea of gratitude and to reflect on 3 good things, really. So I hope you enjoyed that discussion today, that presentation about positive psychology and how you can use this with your mentees.